The trade deadline is less than 24 hours away. The Padres are engaged in all sorts of discussions. We have it all ready to break down for you here on Friar Territory. I'm Kyle Glaser alongside the great Heath Bell. Heath, the trade deadline is upon us, and you've lived this. You were the part of trade rumors year after year after year with the Padres. I have to ask, what is the moment like for players at this time of year? Is it nerves? Is it frustration? Do you just want to get over with? What are players going through right now? The ones on the trade block, at least.
Well, I think the guys that are on the trading block that you hear about all the time, you just don't watch ESPN or MLB, and you tried to block it out. It's there. You block it out. You go home and you play puzzles, play board games, and you don't look on social media for the last 3 days. And one hand you think, man, I really want to stay with this club, and do they just want to get rid of me? Because but then when there was a year that we were doing well, even though I was still in the trade block, and I was like, and everybody's at the All-Star game, play other teams. They're all like, man, if we have you, we're going to the World Series, this and that. So it's fun. It's fun to do that and have people pick you up from other teams and they want you. But personally, you're kind of like, do I really want to go? Yeah, I want to win, but I love it here. And then when you have the other aspect where you get guys, you feel bad for some of the guys that either get sent down or get traded because, your teammates, your buddies with them. Like Mike Adams was a good friend. They got traded. It was like, whoa, we talked every day for 3 years and all of a sudden now you're gone. So it was it's kind of mind racking, but you kind of just block it out and just focus on, let me just work out. Let me just play the game. That stuff, it's not glamorous. It's not fun. Let's just put it that way. Simple, not fun.
Yeah, you got to kind of, shut off the rest of the world, right? Just like you said, don't watch ESPN, don't watch MLB Network, stay off social media, which it's getting harder and harder in this day and age. And I'm sure also you experience this, whether it's your wife or, parents or brothers and sisters or family members texting you all the time. Even if you do all those things, you still are going to get texts from family members you're going to see asking you all these questions. I mean, how often did you get those kind of texts?
Let's put it this way. I put my phone down. I didn't respond for a week. Let's put it that way. Because I'm like, okay, it's coming. It's like this week. I'm not answering my phone. I'm just, every time the phone, my wife would always read social media and all that. But
yeah,
if my phone buzzed, it was like she looked at it, not me. Is it the GM? No? Okay, never mind. It's your mom. It's your buddy. It's your dad. It's this. No.
Fair enough. Well, right now the Padres are in the midst of a lot of different trade discussions. They're 60-49. They just swept the New York Mets in a really, really, really impressive series for them. They've won 5 straight, and they've created some breathing room in the wild card standings. And because of that, they're in position to be aggressive buyers. Back a few weeks ago, you had mentioned the possibility of the Padres simultaneously buying and selling. And you specifically mentioned trading Dylan Cease and then maybe using some of the salary savings to go get other players. As we sit here tonight, the Padres have engaged in trade talks regarding Dylan Cease with the Red Sox. The Astros are interested. There's a number of teams interested. Do you think that is the wisest course of action, trading Dylan Cease and then using some of these salary savings or maybe some of the prospects you get back to go get other players, namely some impact bats?
See, this is what I think they're going to do. I think Dylan Cease is probably going to go to Houston. I really do. I have a gut feeling talking to a couple people. I think that's going to happen. I think the Padres are trying to not increase payroll. Correct. And I think they got in trouble the last couple of years. And I think they're just trying to be smart where I think they realize we're a playoff team. We're a wild card team. And we trade Dylan Cease. We can get something possibly for the future or something today. I think our pitching staff, we have enough pitching where if we lose Dylan Cease, it'll be a little bit of blow, but it won't be a huge blow like most teams. And I think we'll still get to the playoffs. It's just I think our management and our GMs and, Preller's got to be thinking, well, what is this team going to look like today and next year and the year down the road? So next year, like 2026 and 2027, I think that's what he's looking at. So I don't see a bunch of moves. I see us picking somebody off of waivers or claiming somebody before September to maybe help out for the playoff race. But I don't see anybody besides losing Dylan Cease right now. I don't see any big bat coming in right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things to consider, right? The Padres are right at that second luxury tax threshold, and in a perfect world, you'd like to stay below it. Again, for the right player, the right situation, maybe go above it. But all things being equal, just for tax purposes, you want to stay below it. We also know that their farm system right now, again, there's two guys at the top who are very highly regarded, and Leo DeVries and Ethan Salas. There are some good young pitchers in the system, but this is not a great system. It's not a terrible system, but it's not a great system. So you're operating with limited financial resources and limited prospect resources to make trades. I will say with Dylan Cease, what's interesting about this is he's not pitching that well. This isn't a case where, hey, he's pitching really, really well and losing him would be a huge blow. The peripherals are good in terms of the strikeouts, the walks, and the stuff looks good, but he has a 4.79 ERA. It's been getting worse. He has one quality start in the last 6 weeks. Everyone keeps saying, oh, he'll turn around, he'll turn around. Not only is it not turning around, it's getting worse. So I think the Padres can absorb the blow of losing him better than some people might assume just because of the name Dylan Cease. That said, we know that teams do not trade much for rental players, and Dylan Cease will be a free agent at the end of this year. We also know that teams are wary of giving up anything major for players who are not performing that well. So just even if he was performing well as a rental, you were not going to get a huge return for Dylan Cease. Now you add in the fact he's not pitching that well. It really comes down to what do the Padres get back? You talk about an Astros trade. Do they get one of their young big leaguers like a Bryce Matthews or a Jacob Melton? If so, maybe you make the deal. But if you don't, do you part with him just to save the salary and then have another deal in place? I think really what it comes down to for the Padres, if they move Dylan Cease, they do need to use those savings to go get a hitter. Just moving Dylan Cease and then not being able to bring in a hitter, that would be a bad outcome from the team. So really the outcome of, is trading Dylan Cease the right thing to do? It's not going to be in a vacuum. It's going to depend on what other moves the Padres make with the potential savings.
I could see if I was a GM right now, I would trade Dylan Cease for a AAA player that's doing really well, not a major prospect, because that's probably the best you're going to get, and bring him up and let's see if he's stuck in that organization. Let's bring him up. Let's see what he got. Yeah. Then as much as I like Cronenworth, I think he's probably the most valued out of anybody that I'm willing to give up, and I would trade him and maybe throw Salas in just to sweeten the deal and to go get a good hitter. Plus that with Dylan Cease and Cronenworth gone, that kind of frees up some money to get somebody that is being paid a little bit. It could equal it out and then go off for the race.
Again,
I just don't know who. That's the thing.
We'll get to the who. There's a lot of potential players out there. We'll talk about them. But in terms of what is the smartest thing for the Padres to do right now, we've talked about trading Dylan Cease. It is on the table. It is something that could work, but it's dependent on other factors, who they get back, and also if they're able to have the other team absorb all the salary or if they have to pay down some of it. Again, there's a lot of factors that are going to determine whether or not it's actually the right thing to do or not. And of course, what they would turn around and do after. You've mentioned trading Jake Cronenworth. I think realistically for the Padres, given that their offense, which has been performing better recently, has so many holes, I don't think you want to create another one. And as much as Jake Cronenworth hasn't been great, he's been solid enough. He's a good defender. I don't see them moving a position player. You never know. It's possible. The other player that is in trade discussions that other teams are interested in is Robert Suarez. He has 2 player options after this year, essentially owed 2 years, $16 million. He's going to opt out because he's going to get more than that in free agency. So for all intents and purposes, he kind of is a rental right now. Do you think, given the strength of the Padres bullpen and how key that has been to their season so far, trading him to get some salary savings to go get a bat would be the right thing to do?
Yeah, here's the thing. On paper, it makes perfect sense, but sometimes losing a key reliever makes your offense weary of like, okay, can everybody, that's been doing good, but you had, your 7, 8, 9, even though your 7, 8 could turn into 8, 9, and usually your 6 can turn into 7. you just kind of like, oh, is it going to work? You just question the bullpen a little bit. And the bullpen's, I mean, look at this past series against the Mets. Bullpen was, stellar. So it's just, that's the one weary that Robert Suarez, yes, has some, there, and people need relievers. But that's the one thing I'd be a little bit weary. Like, I better get a hitter that's going to come help this offense out. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it for like he's not super great, but I think he'll hit better in Petco than he hits better at his home park. I wouldn't do it for that. So it's just, that's a hard one. I understand on paper, it makes a whole lot of sense, but that's just a hard one for mental guys, I guess you could say.
And I think the other part to consider with that, and you can speak to this, automatically assuming that the setup guy can step into the closer's role and handle it, that's a dangerous assumption. Pitching the eighth is very different than pitching the ninth. And even though you can look and see, oh, he's got the stuff, he's good against righties and lefties, doesn't walk a lot of hitters. There's a mentality aspect of it that you don't really know if a guy can handle it until he's in the situation. So I think given the strength of the Padres bullpen and how key it's been to their team, trading Robert Suarez to me to clear up some salary is kind of option B if, for whatever reason, they can't move Cease. I think if you're going to move one of them to free up salary to go get hitters, Cease is preferable. But I also want to circle back to this, Heath. Does that make the Padres a better team? We talk so much about they need bats. The offense is starting to come alive a little bit. There are other ways they could shed salary to go get some affordable bats. We'll talk about that after the break. But trading Dylan Cease, as much as he's not having a great year, he's capable any given day of going and throwing 6 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts. Does it actually make the Padres a better team trading Dylan Cease and maybe Robert Suarez to free up the salary and replacing them with an impact hitter?
No, it doesn't make them a better team with trading both of them. Actually, I think they might be a better team if Dylan Cease. But here's the only thing: everybody knows Dylan Cease is going to leave. So maybe his mindset isn't there, and doesn't really want to stay, or thinks, well, I'm not going to stay, so I'm just going to do whatever. That's the part that we don't know because we're not in the clubhouse. And I know he probably wants to do really well.
He's a competitor. That's not Dylan.
He's a competitor, but it's just sometimes it's like the closer we had a couple years ago that went to Houston that I refused to kind of say his name, but everybody, it was all about him, and he was good. But it was like, and he would never, you knew that he was leaving, and he didn't have the best years, and this and that, and it's kind of like Soto. So, you knew he was going to leave, and he was just about the money, and he's still about the money with the Mets. But it's just it's one of those things when you have a guy that's good with the team, you don't want to lose him. I think Robert Suarez is that guy over Dylan Cease. Now, I'm not saying anything wrong with Dylan. I think he's a great guy. I think he's going to turn around and have a good future. He's just having a troubled year he's having bad luck. It's just, it's bad luck season.
It's more than bad luck. He's leaving a lot of hittable pitches over the heart of the plate. Again,
there's got to be some reason to it. There's, and teams want him. So I think other teams realize maybe they kind of understand how to fix him, or they kind of have a plan where we have not. So anyway,
like anything else in life, it just comes down to the price. If the Padres can move Dylan Cease to, say, the Astros and get back one of Jacob Melton and Bryce Matthews and maybe a secondary prospect, you clear the money and then can go get some players we'll talk about here after the break, then it makes sense. Then I think it does make the Padres a better team. They can also maybe use some of the savings, depending on other moves they make, to go out and maybe, acquire a back-end starter, which, again, does not cost a lot. We've seen that already with the Chris Paddock trade. So we'll see what happens. But I do think that there is a high likelihood Dylan Cease gets traded, but it's not a certainty. It's just going to come down to, does everything line up, including who the Padres then turn around and acquire to bolster the lineup. We're going to take a quick break, Heath, and then we're going to dive into who some of the hitters are the Padres are interested in, who's realistic for them to get, and what kind of move makes the most sense.
Kratz, if I'm new to card collecting and I'm looking for the safest, most trusted way in the game to acquire cards or to buy a card, but not go through a ton of work where I'm going to the shows, I'm going online doing auctions, I want it all in one place, I'm going to
Arena Club. It's all in one place. You know you're getting a good price, whether you're buying it or you're selling cards. If you're new to it, you don't want all the other crappy cards. You can get the ones that you want. You can start your collection. And if you get them on Arena Club, your collection will look boss.
That's right. And may I mention, they also have Pokemon cards in those slab packs that we talk about every week. You can rip a pack for as low as $25 and hit on a card that's worth tens of thousands of dollars, because every pack has grails that are at least 20x the price of the pack. So get involved at arenaclub.com/foul. Use the code FOUL to get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase.
All right, Kyle Glaser and Heath Bell here, breaking down what the Padres will do with the trade deadline approaching. Heath, before the break, we talked about the players the Padres are in discussions about potentially moving, what makes the most sense. Again, Dylan Cease and Robert Suarez, the big names. The idea would be you clear the salary to go address the offense. The Padres entering today were bottom 2 in the majors in OPS from their catchers, left fielders, and DH.
Hey, wait a second. Catchers raked this series.
Hey, Elias Diaz came up with some big hits. And again, some of that left field DH is when Gavin Sheets is in either spot, they're fine. It's just when other players are in the other spot, it's not good. With that, there are a number of players out there. And again, there are some big name players with, larger salaries. You have the Luis Roberts of the world, but we've talked about Sean Murphy, but realistically, given the Padres' payroll constraints, it's going to be players who are still cheap and are productive. Those are the players that fit the Padres' needs and what they can do, but those are also the players that are the most difficult to get. There are 2 left fielders that are on the trade block. Well, I should say 2 left fielders the Padres are very interested in. The first is Steven Kwan with the Cleveland Guardians. Again, the Guardians, after everything that's happened with Emmanuel Clase following the Luis Ortiz gambling situation, they've pivoted into being sellers. Shane Bieber's on the market. Steven Kwan's on the market. Steven Kwan's an interesting player in the sense that, look, he fits a lot of what the Padres already have and what they like. High contact. He's a really good defender in left field. He's kind of a prototypical leadoff guy where he hit for the Padres with Tatis. You can maneuver some things around. But again, good player, good upgrade. The question is, do the Padres have enough to get him? Because he is a player a lot of teams want. And realistically, a lot of other teams have more to offer the Guardians in terms of quality prospects than the Padres do. Heath, where do you see Steven Kwan in terms of being a fit for what the Padres need, and also just how feasible acquiring him really is?
I think it'd be a great fit for the Padres. I really do. I just don't think we have enough to get him. I think it's just, if nobody else is, if nobody else goes after him, I think at the last minute of the 12th hour or whatever, the 11th hour of the trade deadline, we might get him just because Cleveland is desperate to trade him. But I just don't think we have enough to get him, because we don't want to get rid of our major prospects. So I just don't think it's enough.
And again, the Padres and Guardians have a long history of trading with each other. They have a good relationship, and that does factor into negotiations. But again, Steven Kwan is going to be a highly coveted player. And if other teams propose what they are capable of proposing in trades, it will beat any Padres offer. If those teams are hesitant to trade some of their better guys,
and I think the Padres might get
some of their better guys, the calculus changes. But from a potential perspective, there are just other teams who have more to offer than the Padres do. So we'll see if that one comes to fruition. Heath, the Padres have wanted Jarren Duran for years and years and years and years. Going back to the draft, they tried to acquire him a few years ago. They already made an offer for him. They're still aggressively trying to get him. Jarren Duran is central to the Red Sox success. The Red Sox are a playoff team as of today. Jarren Duran has been their leadoff hitter most of the season. He's been batting 3-hole recently and been raking. Jarren Duran leads the Red Sox in hits, runs, doubles, triples, steals, and total bases. This is a central part of a playoff team's success. Realistically, it does not make any sense for the Red Sox to trade him, and to that point, they've more or less said they've pulled him off the market. The Padres are going to be aggressive. They're going to make aggressive offers, but I think the issue here, once again, is it takes 2 to tango, and from the Red Sox perspective, there is zero motivation to trade Jarren Duran. You're a playoff team. He's a central part of it. He's cheap, he's affordable, and he's getting hot when you need him most. I just, from the Red Sox perspective, trading him just does not make any sense and is counterproductive to their stated goal of competing.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I mean, I just think the Padres need to let it go. It's not going to happen. Work on trying to get a catcher. I think we need a catcher more than a left fielder.
Agreed.
Yeah, just let it go.
The last player whose name has surfaced in trade discussions, as my friend Dennis Lin reported and Ken Rosenthal reported, the Padres have expressed interest in Mason Miller, the flame-throwing closer with the A's. And this is where we talk about, making a move to trade someone, you acquire someone else, potentially trading Robert Suarez and his large salary, then turning around and going and getting Mason Miller, who's making under $1 million a year. The problem is because Mason Miller is making under $1 million a year and has 4 seasons of control left, the price to acquire him is going to be massive. And once again, a lot of other teams that are in the relief market can outbid any Padres offer, even if the Padres go wild and offer, a Leo DeVries, which they're not going to. Other teams can say, well, we have some guys at AA, AAA that are every bit as talented and closer to the major. So realistically, again, the Padres are going to be aggressive. They're going to go after pretty much any player that they can. But I think that spending their limited resources on another reliever, even if they do trade away Robert Suarez, is not the best allocation of those resources. And they also can't compete with, you think about what the Dodgers can offer. The Dodgers can blow any Padres offer out of the water with room to spare.
This is the problem. And the Padres have given up their prospects the last couple of years. They don't have enough anymore. So there's going to be a year, and I think this is the year where they can't really do a whole lot. They can't trade their prospects because they don't have prospects.
I wouldn't go that far. They have, again, DeVries and Salas are talented at the top, but Salas is hurt, and they do have some arms double and below. Young pitching as always.
We don't have prospects like other clubs. Our farm system is not loaded anymore because we got rid of everything. Maybe next year will be kind of a little bit better.
Correct. But, so I think, again, the Padres are going to go after these big names because this is what they do. You have to understand AJ Preller is relentless.
But
he loves the big, aggressive trades, and he is always going to have those discussions. But there's a difference between discussing something and being able to do something. I think that the Padres can trade Dylan Cease. They can trade Robert Suarez. Could they go after and maybe get a Steven Kwan? If they maybe flip some of the prospects they get in those trades and use the savings, it's possible. Again, I don't see Jarren Duran happening. Never say never, but it makes no sense from the Red Sox perspective. Mason Miller, it's going to be very hard for them to compete with other teams' offers. Steven Kwan, of the guys that are being discussed right now, is the most realistic, but it's also going to be very, very difficult.
I just think right now it's almost like, okay, we're not going to eat breakfast for the next 3 days so we can go out tonight. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't. It just, it sucks, but we just don't have the prospects. We don't have the money. Everybody knew we didn't want to think about it, but this something like this was going to happen. And it's just unfortunately happening right now to a team that's kind of getting hot, so it's still a long way away, but I just don't think we have anything. And I really feel like, we're going to trade Dylan Cease, maybe Robert Suarez. Robert Suarez is probably going to hurt the team, if we trade him, and we're not getting a whole lot back.
So there's another avenue here that the Padres can take to upgrade their club without costing someone who is super, super valuable to the team. And that would be trading some of their lower end relievers in Wandy Peralta and Yuki Matsui. And Padres fans listening are going to laugh at this because those guys have not been good, but you would be amazed. Teams are always looking for left-handed relief help. Always, always, always. Peralta is owed about $1.5 million left this year. Matsui is owed about $2 million left this year. Realistically, if the Padres can move those two and maybe even pay down a little bit of Matsui's salary, that saves them $3.5 million. And you say, well, that's not a lot of money. You can't do a whole lot with that. $3.5 million would cover the Steven Kwan salary the rest of the year. It would cover Jarren Duran's salary the rest of the year. It would cover Ryan Jeffers' salary the rest of the year. So if they can move those two, get the salary off the books, and understand you're not getting real prospects back for these guys. You're getting non-prospects. It's more about getting the salary off the books. And then you can turn around and use some of those savings to go get, again, maybe it's a rental player. I've talked about Ramon Laureano, who is having a fantastic year. Left fielder, can play left and right. He's playing right now. for the Orioles. There's an option on him next year, but for all intents and purposes, he can be a free agent. He's a rental. You wouldn't have to pay a lot for him, and his production has actually been really, really good, on par with a lot of other big names. So I do think we need to acknowledge, yes, there's the big moves with the big names the Padres are always going to go after, but they can also make some small moves, clear up a little bit of salary, and use that to go get, again, a left fielder who is actually doing okay and is productive at a rental price. I actually think that there's an argument to be made that is the best version of the Padres, keeping Dylan Cease, keeping Robert Suarez, trading some of that back end bullpen depth, and going and getting a productive hitter who's going to be a free agent at the end of this year.
Well, I mean, let's just see if AJ is smart like you, or just realizing, hey, I can't do anything.
AJ probably
like he wants to make a big splash.
He does.
And he can't. So I don't want to make the little smart moves, because I'm kind of agree with you. Everybody wants lefties. If we could do that, we could get somebody not a big name, but is producing this year, just a rental this year. That's fine, because our team's going to look totally different next year. You go for it. But, I don't know. We just don't have the guys that we've been used to trading guys the last couple of years, and we don't have it, period. Sorry. It's kind of like telling one of my kids, oh, you're making your own money. You have to buy your own food. You got to pay your own bills. Let's go.
There's no question the Padres do not have the amount of prospect talent this year they've had in previous years. Again, it's not empty. There is some players that are interesting, but it's not the same caliber, quantity, or quality as in recent years. And again, we'll see what the Padres do. They could do the big moves with the big names. They could do the little moves. They could do a little bit of both. Nothing is off the table with AJ Preller. I'm on the side of the little moves. To me, make more sense, especially because the team is playing well, and I'd be wary of seriously disrupting that. But you also understand that there's a big, big need in left field, and the Padres ideally want someone who covers that hole, not just this year, but in years to come.
Really quick, the last problem I have is we're talking about a left fielder, and we need a catcher that can make contact.
We absolutely do. Or I should say the Padres do, and that's where, again, Sean Murphy realistically is not on the market. Ryan Jeffers would be a nice trade acquisition. But again, the Padres are chasing after some other fish. We'll see what happens. All right, Heath, we've talked a lot about trade possibilities, what it would look like for the Padres to trade with some of their top end guys, who they'd be acquiring, some alternate scenarios. We do need to talk about this team on the field. They've won 5 straight. They've created some room in the wild card race. Yu Darvish had his best start of the season since coming off the IL today. We're going to break all that down here after a quick word from our sponsors.
Kratz, at some point, we're going to laugh about how healthcare was so reactive and not proactive. And we're starting to change that with Superpower. They believe every human has 100+ year potential, and they're here to help you get there. I'm a big believer in this. I just started the journey, so I'm excited about it. And what do you think?
As a player, you're always looking ways to improve yourself, improve your health. And this is an easy way. Superpower's made it way easier than when I was playing. You had to go get all these lab panels, and it was a long, drawn-out, expensive process. But now with Superpower, so this is awesome for me. I'm excited about it.
They'll send a licensed professional to your home, or you can visit a nearby lab. For a limited time, the FT fam can get $50 off an annual Superpower membership by using code FOUL at checkout. Just head to superpower.com and use code FOUL to get our exclusive discount. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, and please support FT and tell them we sent you.
All right, Friar Territory, Kyle Glaser alongside Heath Bell. Heath, amidst all this trade talk, the Padres are 60-49. They've won 5 straight games. They just swept a very, very, very good Mets team. Walk-off win in the opener, but then 2, frankly, dominant wins to close out the series. This is a team that is playing well. They have created some separation in the wildcard standings. They're currently in the final NL wildcard spot, but the teams below them, the Reds, were 3 games back entering the day. I think from the Padres' perspective, we need to give this team credit. Part of the reason they're in position to potentially be aggressive at the deadline is because of how well they're playing. Overall, what is standing out to you about the Padres? What are they doing well? What are you seeing that is allowing them to do things they weren't doing most of the year, which was winning games on the road and beating teams above 500?
Well, I think everybody's refreshed after the All-Star break. I really do. Tatis is playing like he is, in April, where he's just happy, lucky, making diving plays, robbing home runs. Machado's doing what he's doing. Ariz is crushing the ball, getting some hits.
Yeah.
But I think the big key after the All-Star break so far, and I know it's only been a few games, is our bottom of the lineup is swinging the bat. Bogarts is slowly hitting the ball constantly the past month.
Yep.
And our catchers started hitting the ball, and Diaz and Maldonado. So it's the bottom of the lineup is starting to make contact like they did in April, where when they didn't hit the ball, it was kind of like an automatically 3 innings we didn't get hits out of the whole game. So it was like now we're only playing 6 innings instead of 9. So offensive wise, so. That's just really what it is. Everybody's swinging the bat, and it's not waiting for Machado, not waiting for Jackson Merrow, Tatis to hit the ball or Sheets. It's the bottom of the lineup swinging the bat too.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we have to acknowledge the top of the lineup. They're all hitting at the same time, really for the first time since April. Fernando Tatis Jr., again, was in that terrible slump. In his previous 20 games entering today, sitting over 300 with an OPS in the 940s. He's been playing great. Xander Bogaerts was one of the 10 worst hitters in baseball for the first 2.5 months of the season. Not hyperbole. His OPS was bottom 10 in the majors up through June 15th. Since then, the last 35 games, he's been one of the best hitters in baseball. Again, he's hitting well over 300. His OPS is in the 930s as well. Machado's doing his thing. Ariz is doing his thing. Jackson Merrill was on a 9-game hitting streak. He went 0 for 4 today, but we're starting to see everyone come together. And look, Gavin Sheets homered today. He was having a little bit of a slump, and you're right. Elias Diaz, Martin Maldonado, guys who had been problems are starting to come up with some big hits. So everything's clicking offensively, and that's why we're starting to see the Padres put up these 7-run games, these 5-run games, which they weren't doing. But I think the most encouraging aspect of this sweep is what happened today. Yu Darvish throwing 7 scoreless innings, 2 hits allowed, no walks, 7 strikeouts. What did you think of Darvish's outing and what it means for the Padres moving forward?
Well, one, congratulations being the most Asian pitcher or Japanese or anyway, Chinese Asian pitcher, 204 wins, or Japanese pitcher, whichever. Anyway, it's great seeing Yu Darvish pitch. Like, I've almost felt like I was watching Jake Peavy because it seemed like, okay, Yu Darvish pitched in the era, I was playing in where, starters would go 6-7 innings all the time. And it felt like that. And if you did really well, those 7 innings, you wouldn't give up any runs. And I felt like, wow, that's kind of him back to being where we need him to be. If we need an ace, that's going to be him. So it was really nice. And I think it kind of shows the potential of Yu Darvish. He's 100% healthy.
Yeah.
And he can lead this pitching staff down the stretch. And it was just really nice giving the bullpen a rest because the last couple of days, the bullpen came in and have been dominating, getting the Padres out of some jams. And it's been great seeing them pitch, but it was also great to have that day off. And then the offense show up. So you didn't have to use your main guys at the end too. So
yeah, Dylan Cease and Ryan Bergert both failed to get through 5 innings. The first 2 games of the series. So Darvish going 7 today was really, really key. Give the bullpen a rest. There were definitely a segment of people. There was definitely a segment of people that were concerned after Yu Darvish really struggled his first 3 starts. And I talked about this earlier today on Foul Territory. Yu Darvish was still building up. You have to remember, Yu Darvish made 1 rehab appearance with Lake Elsinore, came out of that with elbow tightness, was shut down again. Then after that, his building back up phase was just throwing some simulated games, throwing some bullpens off to the side. That adrenaline of pitching against live hitters in a game that actually matters, and the command, the focus, all of it, you can't really simulate that. And he was just still building back up. These first 3 starts were essentially him continuing his rehab process.
Kind of like coming out of spring training, really.
Yeah. So again, I thought that the concern over Yu Darvish was unfounded over those first 3 starts because you have to remember he was still building back up. He was not 100% ready to go when he made that first start. Works out the kinks his first 3, has this good start today. I do think now we're going to see the best version of Yu Darvish moving forward. The guy who at his best is still capable of pitching like a number 1 starter. And look, I think it's very realistic that we look up and he's made 13 starts at the end of the year with an ERA in the low 3s. And He's starting game 1 or 2 of a playoff series. So I think that this is a very encouraging development for the Padres, and I don't think it's a fluke. I think it's the next step in his progression. So for the Padres, now you look and say, hey, Yu Darvish, Nick Pavetta's pitching like an ace. You hope to get Michael King back when healthy. He's pitched like a number 1 without a lot of fanfare. And they've had some guys really step up at the back. We talk about Steven Kwan, Ryan Bergert, Randy Vasquez. That's where you say, okay, maybe they can afford to part with Dylan Cease. But this is where I want to wrap it up with you. How concerned would you be, and you've lived this being in the clubhouse, that you have a team that is playing really well right now, that is playing the kind of baseball that we haven't seen from them really since April? How worried would you be? How wary would you be of trading a big piece like a Dylan Cease or Robert Suarez, and how that might disrupt the rhythm, the flow, the vibes, everything in the clubhouse? How concerned would you be about that?
See, that's where the clubhouse and front office need to, or the front office needs to be, that's where I talk about, trusting in each other, where if he's not, like, say Dylan Cease, and I don't know this, but let's just say he's a professional pitcher. He goes about his business, doesn't interact a whole lot, but he's a, great clubhouse guy, this and that, but not really the leader in the clubhouse, this and that would be okay to trade him. But like somebody that's, kind of like, like Kim of last year, everybody loved him. He was the clubhouse guy. You trade him, your mojo's kind of gone. And you're kind of like, okay, what happened? What are we doing? So when you make trades, you have to think of the clubhouse atmosphere too. And I don't know if Dylan Cease is, just kind of a quiet guy. If he's a quiet guy, it might not be that bad of a thing to trade him. But if he's a talkative and, behind the scenes, we don't see it, and he's rah-rah everybody and pats everybody on the back, then that might be a mistake to trade him, So it's kind of weary where, like, I'll give you an example. In 2006, I was with the New York Mets and the San Diego Padres on the ticker of ESPN. They sent me down to Norfolk like 3 days before the trade deadline. And it said I was traded for Scott Linebrink the last like 5 minutes. And I was like, okay. So I'm waiting. No call from my agent. No call this. Like, what? We saw this on TV. Like, what's going on? And then after, it was like 5 hours went by. I got a call that the trade didn't go through. Well, the next year I talked to Kevin Towers and he actually said the trade was done. And then Trevor Hoffman came to him and goes, Scott Linebrink's one of the main guys in our clubhouse. You can't get rid of him. And so he pulled the trade with a minute to go. And he goes, yeah. So I changed my mind. I pulled it we had literally 60 seconds and we pulled it. And that's why we sent everything there. And then we called before they signed off on it and said, no, we're not doing it. So that's why everybody thought we did it or it happened. And he goes, we got you anyway in the off season. And I was like, great. Okay. But, it's the Padres at that time didn't want to lose Scott Linebrink because he was the main guy in the clubhouse and he would have lost that clubhouse atmosphere. And the next year he was a great guy. And so that does, take a toll on teams. Yeah. So it's just kind of, you have to know the clubhouse too. That's where I say the front office, the GM or president of operations, as they call it, whoever's making the decision talks to the leader of like Tatis or Machado and go, hey, I'm probably going to do this. Do you think it's going to be a good idea or not a good idea? And the player will give you honest, but if you don't have that relationship and you don't trust each other, you're not going to be honest. And I've been with GMs that you couldn't be honest with, and I've been with GMs that have been very honest, and you could talk and you could just BS with them, and you knew nothing was going to go past it. So those are the best GMs I think are in the league, and one is in LA and one is in Chicago right now. So, it's just one of those things that you got to know your clubhouse to make sure that the mojo in the clubhouse doesn't get ruined and your team doesn't go, crap. Are we going to really win with this new guy or not? Is he going to be fun or not? So you always want people to help. And I know that's kind of like a long question I'm rambling, but.
No, what you don't want to have happen is when the Brewers traded Josh Hader to the Padres, when the Brewers were in playoff position. And it absolutely killed their clubhouse. That was a mistake the moment it was made. So I do think there's certainly an element of that here.
Well, I think we all know why the Brewers did it. Because Hader is just playing for himself, unfortunately.
Heath Bell, not a Josh Hader fan, but regardless, it was a move that really hurt the Brewers clubhouse culture. They were very open about it, and it ultimately was a situation where they fell from a playoff team to out of the postseason, in large part because of that trade. And that's something you want to be very wary of, and you don't want to
That's
be
where I
guilty of
don't
as
for
a GM.
Robert Suarez. I really don't, unless you're just like whatever.
Yeah. So again, we will see what happens. Again, the Padres always think big. Heath, any final thoughts here as we sit 20 hours, less than 20 hours away from the trade deadline?
My gut feeling is AJ's not going to do anything, but I think the Padres are good enough to get to the playoffs, and if they get hot at the right time, they'll be just fine. But I just have a gut feeling they're not going to do anything, unfortunately.
I would say that given his history, I'm actually expecting the opposite, that the Padres make a giant, crazy, wild trade, when in reality, a smaller trade would do the trick. And we'll see whether or not that turns out to be the wisest course of action. Regardless, the Padres are playing good baseball.
Trade Machado for Otani.
I don't think we're going to see anything quite that crazy.
He only makes $2 million. What are you talking about?
This is true. But once again, for that exact reason, he ain't going anywhere for really the entire tenure, the entire contract of his Dodgers tenure. Well, again, we're geared up for what should be a fun, wild trade deadline. We will have all the latest updates here on Friar Territory. It's going to be a fun one, no matter what happens. We will have you covered top to bottom. For Heath Bell, I'm Kyle Glaser. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you tomorrow to wrap up the trade deadline.
Let's go, Padres.